All right, today's lesson 13, we are making a recipe smaller. So if any of you just love to get in the kitchen and cook things or bake things, this lesson is teaching us how we can make our recipe. Let's say we have a recipe that it calls for a certain amount of stuff and it's serving 8 people. But what if you only have 4 friends coming over and you want to make your recipe smaller to where a batch only makes enough for 4 instead of 8? That's what we're going to go over today, all right? Top of page 50, it says, Grandpa and Grandma were expecting company for supper. Grandpa had just picked strawberries from the garden that morning, so Grandma got out her shortcake recipe. How many of you just love strawberries and shortcake? Me. I love that stuff. So her recipe is right there for strawberry shortcake. It says, gives the ingredients she needs, and it tells her what to do. Crush 2 cups of strawberries, whip 1 cup of cream, and add sugar to sweeten. Cut cooled cake into 8 pieces for each serving. Place a square of cake on a saucer, spoon strawberries onto the cake, and top with whipped cream. Serves 8 people. Sounds delicious. Grandma was expecting only 2 guests, though, so she needed only 4 servings of strawberry shortcake. Can you help her have the recipe so she has the right amount of dessert for the 4 people she will be serving? To have a recipe, find half of the amount of each ingredient. You may either divide each amount by 2 or multiply by 1/2. Okay? So that's all we're doing for our new part today. You guys have questions 1 through 5. We have to write the amount of each ingredient in the strawberry shortcake for only 4 servings. All right, the recipe that she has up top here, it serves 8 people. So we have to cut our recipe in half. We have to make our recipe smaller, all right? So we're gonna do number 1, A and B together in class, all right? And notice how we can divide in our recipe. So we could either divide each amount by 2 or multiply it by 1/2. All right, so I'm gonna show you guys up on the board what happens when we do both of those, all right? So let's just take, for instance, let's start with our 2.5 cups of flour. So we wanna cut that recipe, we wanna cut that measurement in half. So let's just do it both ways and you'll see that we'll come out with the same answer. So if we would divide by 2, we have 2.5, which if we would change that to a decimal, what would we change it to? What's our decimal equivalent for half? 0.50, right? So we're just gonna we can drop our zeros, we can put our 5 there, and we're gonna divide by 2. 2 goes into 2 one time, so we have this subtracted, we have nothing left. Put our decimal point up here and bring our 5 down. 2 goes into there twice. Now we're gonna annex a 0 to finish our division. 2 goes into 10 5 times. So we have 1 in 2,500. And in recipes, we don't use decimal places. We use fractions, okay? So what would we change our 2,500ths to in fraction form? We would change it to 1 and 1/4, right? Because 2,500, the equivalent of that in a fraction form would be 1/4, all right? So our answer for this using dividing it by 2 would be 1 and 1/4, all right? Now notice what we do if we multiply by half, by our fraction half. So if we go 2 and 1/2 times 1/2, all right, so we have a mixed number here, so we're gonna change it to an improper fraction. So we're gonna go 5, 2 times 2 would be 4 plus 1, so we got 5/2 times 1.5. So we have 5/4. We have an improper fraction, so remember we're gonna divide. So we're gonna go stick our numerator inside, our denominator here on the outside. 4 goes into 5 once, subtracted. We write our remainder as our numerator and our divisor as our denominator, right? So we both came up with 1 and 1/4, okay? So I will leave that up to you, how you guys want to solve those. You can either do it this way or this way, but remember, if you come up with your decimal, you need to make sure you change it to its equivalent fraction form, all right? So your answer for number 1A that I just helped you guys solve is we would, if we're cutting our cup of flour in half, we're gonna need 1 1/4 cup of flour if we're only serving 4 people, right? So let's go ahead and let's do number 1B together, all right? So work through that. We have, if we look up in our recipe, notice it calls for 1 cup of sugar. So we're going to just half that. And you might know this in your head. I mean, you probably do. What's half of 1? It's simply half, right? But how do we get that? So we're gonna take 1 times either our half fraction. So, and if we just have our whole number like this, we're just gonna put 1 over 1, right? To change it to fraction form, because remember our whole numbers are always just understood to be over our number 1. So, if we times this, we're gonna come up with 1 and then 2. We're gonna have a half cup of sugar, okay? Now, you guys can go ahead and do numbers 2 through 5. And like I said, it's up to you whether you want to divide by 2 or multiply by your fraction. And remember, if it's a whole number, like let's say for instance 2 eggs, and you're gonna multiply it by your half fraction. So remember, you just put your 2 over your 1, and then you would divide it just like that, all right? Okay? That is all for your new part today. And just quickly look over the rest of our lesson. And we have no star problems or anything. So that is all for your lesson today. I hope you guys have a good one, and I will see you guys later.